It's Monday.
It's Monday, but you know what else it is? It is the official, or unofficial, depending upon how you look at it, the halfway point of astronomical winter. At 5:10 this morning, Eastern Standard Time, we were exactly midway between December's winter solstice and the vernal equinox of March, and here we are.
And we still haven't seen a flake or an ice pellet. Well, I shouldn't quite say that. We've seen a minimal amount of flakes or ice pellets.
A minimal amount, yes.
Joe Chaffee, Fios 1 News, Long Island, and Fios 1 News, New Jersey.
And Joe Rayo, Fios 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley, and welcome back.
Yes, feeling much better.
Yes.
It was not fun.
Yeah. Well,
the neck spasms were out of control on Friday, but they seem to have gone away.
Well, I appreciate the fact that when you do take ill, that at least the weather that you leave for me is relatively easy.
Well, that's the case now.
Right.
We'll see if that holds.
When is the next library talk? March
12th.
Okay.
That's a Tuesday.
And that's also the 100 and blah, 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 blah. Hold on.
Is it the Blizzard of 88 anniversary?
131st anniversary of the Blizzard of 88? Yeah.
All right, well,
we'll see.
All right, it's a Monday night, the day after Super Bowl. I'm trying to remember, Joe, is today National Weather Person's Day or is
tomorrow?
It tomorrow? It is tomorrow. So,
and in fact, did you get the email from the American Meteorological Society?
To wear my pin?
To wear your pin, yes.
I have to find my pin. I have no idea where my pin is.
Well, I have it, and I'll wear it. I mean,
I can't. I have no idea where my AMS pin is. It's somewhere. It's around somewhere.
Well, they issued it about 30 years ago or something, you know.
Yeah, but it'll turn up. So, a couple of things I just want to tell my folks that are watching from Suffolk County on Long Island, and that is, watch out for some potential black ice. We had that this morning. I was actually quite surprised at how much black ice was around this morning. I could actually, when the sun came up, I could see the ice, the crystals just glistening, which you don't see too often. But it's down in the 20s in some places out on Long Island right now. So a little bit of the low levels are pretty moist, not impossible. And there was some fog last night. I thought earlier there might be. Now I'm starting to wonder whether it'll be the case tonight. But just in case, if you're out during the early morning hours or a little bit before daybreak, just bear that in mind. That there could be some slick spots.
Well, you know, the fog, and we've mentioned this before, fog is certainly great for getting rid of snow. Well, of course, snow is not the problem now. Up where I live, for example, my problem still is some patches of ice. I don't know how that's going to react with the fog, but it's.
You would think the temperatures today in the 50s would have gotten rid of some of that.
Well, yeah. In fact, I looked at some of the ice, and you could actually see the water underneath the ice, kind of gurgling or burbling or whatever like that. So it's and we still have one more mild day, I think, tomorrow before cold front moves on by in the afternoon. Brings in a chillier sweep of air for Wednesday and probably for Thursday.
Right. We're radiating like mad tonight because skies are clear. These are current temperatures. The Weather Service's electronic digital display is back up today after being down since the middle of the shutdown. 28 now in West Hampton and in East Hampton. But even in areas just to the west of there, it's pretty chilly. The temperatures actually fell off fairly. Well, there was a sea breeze. Sea breeze didn't really make it to the North Shore, but all these South Shore readings here didn't really have that far to go to drop down to mid-30s, which is where they are now. And also, away from the warmer urban centers, Joe, it's 49 in the city at the moment. But you go just north and west, it's in the mid-30s. And if you go into northwest New Jersey, it's in the low 30s. And let's go up the Hudson Valley a bit. And is that a whole lot of obs around tonight? Newburgh is 39. Montgomery is 34. Looks like there's some missing data in here.
But Joe, these temperatures are so on the other side of the spectrum compared to where we were at just a few days ago. And let's say temperatures bottom out in most areas in the Hudson Valley at around 35 or thereabouts after the clouds come in and maybe some patchy fog. 35 is still abnormally mild for the early part of February.
Oh, yeah.
So it's crazy how we've gone from one side of the pendulum to the other here.
Well, we had a spectacular day thanks to this storm that is sitting off the North Carolina coast. The satellite signature on this storm actually was fairly impressive, even though it's not overly intense, but it sure looked the part. But we benefited from it today because we were getting subsidence all day long on the northwest side, and that just took all the moisture out of the air. We had a very rare, because especially in the wintertime, cloud-free days are fairly rare from start to finish.
Right.
It wasn't quite from the start, but certainly from after about 8 or 9 o'clock this morning, it was just mostly sunny. And we still continue to see clear skies. And you got this front that's coming in from the west, and that one is, that front with some showers that are to our west. I think those showers are going to disappear long before they get here.
If they don't disappear, if they still hold together, I think they mostly are going to shear off to our north. And so... maybe the leather stocking or the central part of New York State or up near Albany or the Adirondacks may get a swipe of or a little bit of precip out of that, but it doesn't look like very much to be concerned about.
I'm going to move the satellite loop to the west. You can probably see the edge of it here. But they had another major storm, back-to-back major storms coming in to the western part of the United States, just getting clobbered with snow. If you want to know where all the snow is, folks, you got to go into California. These are 72-hour snowfalls. Now, granted, this is all up through the Sierra Nevadas with 36-inch plus amounts, but still, this is the second or third time that they've gotten hammered with big snows, and there will be. I was checking some of the forecasts. Where they have winter storm warnings up pretty close to the coast for elevated areas, but the snow elevation level is going to drop down to 1,000 feet,
right.
Which means that you'll be able to there'll be snow not that far from San Francisco, for example. You'll probably be able to see it.
Yep.
From views that have the Golden Gate Bridge looking toward the northwest. So this has been a pretty significant snowmaker in the west, and that's where all the action is. If it's springtime, anytime it's warm in the east in the wintertime, it's getting hammered somewhere, and it's usually in the west.
Right, because it's very rare that you would get the entire country sees the same thing in terms of temperatures. I mean, usually it's half or two-thirds of the country are basking in above normal or below normal, and the remainder is getting just the opposite. And right now, we're seeing the warm temperatures, and the folks out west are, as you just mentioned, getting those colder readings.
Right, and where it's not snowing, they've had a ton of rain up and down California from south to north, all the way down to San Diego, but big rains there. The rains look more showery in nature as they're coming in. The storm itself has moved inland. Here's the latest analysis, and it's sitting in eastern Oregon, this latest low. And part of this western energy is going to get kicked along. We've got this cold front here that is going to be coming through on Tuesday. This one's not going to have very much with it. This is the showers with this, Mr. Rayo, as you said, is bring it back on the radar.
It's more of a dry front. I mean, whatever moisture that we see late tonight and early tomorrow in the form of low cloud cover and or fog will be swept like a whisk broom, or the front will act like a whisk broom. Sweep that out, bring in a drier airflow. It's not going to turn cold immediately behind it, but what that front will do is help to dry the atmosphere out enough so that we get that sunshine. Once the sun comes out tomorrow afternoon or midday or maybe even late morning, up will go to the temperatures one more time.
Especially with the wind going around to the west. Now that might cut the sea breeze off for coastal areas, so you might see temperatures suddenly jump once the winds shift. And then after that, we'll bring up the... What model do you want me to bring up?
Well, the new NAM is
all right.
Out.
The man wants the NAM, he gets the NAM. And we'll give everybody the eastern view. And so this is this evening pretty much. And this is I think like the third or fourth low in the last 3 or 4 weeks that has formed off the southeast coast and has moved straight out to the east.
Right.
There is a reason that is happening, and I'll get to that in a second. But there's your front for tomorrow. And as you correctly point out, Joe, the echoes just kind of fall apart. Most of it goes well by to our north. The front goes by, and then we're going to have a high building down from the north weekly, at least enough to bring the temperatures down somewhat. And then we start to get into some of that moisture that shoots out from the western storms that have come in. This lead area gets in tomorrow late in the afternoon. I covered for the possibility that in northwest New Jersey, if it comes in, this is at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, there might be some cold air trapped in some valleys.
Wednesday afternoon.
I'm sorry, Wednesday afternoon. I take it, I'm running ahead of myself. Wednesday afternoon and into Wednesday evening. Cold air trapped in the valleys. And you might have a brief start as freezing rain before it goes over to rain anyway. And then we get into rain Wednesday night. The new dam, that first patch comes out. Then you get another patch that's getting ready to come in, probably for the morning commute. I think after that, Joe, we might catch a break after about mid or late morning on Thursday.
You may remember, by the way, a week ago we were discussing, not for Wednesday, but for Thursday, the possibility of a little bit of frozen precipitation. Of course, now
Right.
that has changed somewhat in terms of the timing or whatever. But again, it looks like there may be a little bit of frozen precip.
Well, that would be right
initially, but that's more now Wednesday afternoon rather than a Thursday morning
Right.
occurrence.
And then,
And considering that, I don't want to get you angry.
more.
I don't want to get
Why
you
would I get angry?
Well, I'm going to mention the fact that it is during the daytime and the sun angle.
Oh, the sun angle. They're starting to pop up. I noticed a few comments already.
I mean, if this would have happened, let's say at night, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But if this is going to be in the afternoon, a few pellets of ice or sleet or whatever,
it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
We're going to have a repeat performance, I think, on Friday. In that the system that follows Thursday night and Friday goes so far west. We get a warm front that's going to attempt to push through. I think it succeeds. And the cold front with that, I don't know, Joe. I'm wondering whether there might be very little in the way of shower activity. If you look at the GFS, it does show a little bit Friday midday,
Right.
but I just wonder whether it'll just all dry out and fall apart.
it could be.
And the cold air mass behind this one is a bit stronger than what's coming down for tomorrow. So
Right.
it looks like we'll have a cold, dry weekend going
Well,
forward.
let's just say that the weekend, it'll be a reminder, if you forgot already, it is, after all, early February, and we're not going
Right.
to see a lot of this at this time of the year. And just to remind you that this looks like to be a cold, albeit dry,
Right.
upcoming weekend.
Now I want to go back to what I had touched on earlier with regards to that system off the Carolina coast. And if you snow lovers want to know one of the big issues regarding, we've been focusing on different things with why is there been a lack of storms, a lack of snow here. Obviously, systems are not timing out with whenever we get the cold air. We had two bitter cold air masses that came in and went out where we didn't see a flake or an ice pellet either ahead of it or behind it.
Right.
But if you look at the jet stream pattern across the Atlantic, it's almost straight west to east. There is nothing. It's not like there are storms populating around the Atlantic. And when you look at the Atlantic satellite, it's amazing how you've got this one storm that's going to be south of Greenland. This is actually for today. This storm that's southeast of Greenland, which is a bit of a powerhouse. But that's it. There's nothing else anywhere. So any of these systems that are along the East Coast, there's nothing for that. There's nothing out to the east that says you can't come here. There's no room. You need to find your way out in a different path.
Is this the Atlantic fire hose?
Well, this is like it's an Atlantic fire hose, and it's been like this for a while. And look at this. I mean, going in through Wednesday, it's just almost a straight line. Is
Right.
a system developing in the Central Atlantic, but big deal. I mean, it's almost a straight line all the way across. You've got an upper high here in the east. And then, of course, you bring in this cold front over the weekend. The flow kind of flattens a bit. And this is where we start to look at next week. I think as far as, the way I'm looking at this, Joe, as far as the next several weeks with respect to any kind of potential snow events, everything is just going to have to just kind of time out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have cold air nearby. You're going to have weather systems moving across nearby to the south, and they're going to just have to time out perfectly for it to happen. There have been a few model runs today. This is for next week. There's a strong trough that's swinging into the eastern part of the United States, but this next system, depending on what run you look at, like if you looked at the 12Z, I'm going to go to the parallel GFS because that had a fairly bullish look for snow lovers anyway. So we go through the weekend. Looks like a lead system comes out with some warm advection, kind of like what's happening for Wednesday, only it's colder this time, but the precip looks kind of blotchy and weak. And then a stronger system comes out and attempts to do something, but again, this could all wind up still going more to the lakes than anything else.
Right.
So there's a window of opportunity, I think, for some potential for some snow next week, but I could see 100 ways where it winds up coming out differently.
Could be the yet another heartbreaker for the snow lovers, where it really looks good at the very beginning, but then as that system, if that remains the primary system going to the west through the Great Lakes, very, very quickly you lose the snow to sleet and eventually just to plain old rain. And it's really, if you want a classic setup for for a snowstorm in February, I don't really see it.
Yeah,
at least in the
this would not be a big event. This would be maybe a moderate event. Now, I am going to throw some cold water on the European model fans because this model, in particular, in the time frame out the 7 to 9 day time frame, it has been god awful. And once again today, it has a snowy look to it. A low goes into eastern Kentucky, redevelops. You wind up with not a half bad looking low near Cape Cod. The next day, I looked at the snow amounts that the European generated. Right. It gave about 4 or 5 inches to New York City and Long Island and northern New Jersey, and higher amounts as you go north and east. It gave about 1 inch to Philadelphia, down to Baltimore and Washington. But again, this model has been horrible in the long range.
Absolutely.
And the same thing applies with talking about this was a situation where the European had a fairly cold look aloft and not a pretty decent looking upper trough that moves through here to support this system. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'd be shocked if it looks anything like this, if not on the next run, then the run after that.
It's just like
It's been terrible.
It's just like that winter we had about 8 or 9 years ago, where again the European was, screaming big storm, 5, 6, 8 days in advance, and then when we finally got to the actual event, it was nothing compared to what it was suggesting, many, many days out. And I'm just not excited. I see something like that comes out now on the European, anything beyond 4 or 5 days, and I'll just say, well, let's see if that all pans out. So I wouldn't get too excited yet, snow lovers, as Joe just mentioned.
Collective hello to everybody. Jason Kaplan, all right, so now we're reaching for the Madden-Julian oscillation going into phase 8. I'm going to my response to that is prove it to me, because I think this is the 3rd or 4th time that I've heard in the last 3 or 4 weeks that the Madden-Julian oscillation is going to go into phase 8. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is, this basically measures conditions out in the tropics, way out in the Pacific and in the Indian Ocean, and the oscillation in terms of the winds and the tropical activity there. And there are phases to that, and when there's 8 phases, and then there's a neutral phase, which they call the circle of death. So the phases of 8, 1, and 2 are usually pretty bullish for cold and snow in the eastern half of the United States, although it doesn't tell you exactly where in the eastern United States it is. We have been at this point apparently several times in the last month where models have been kind of pointing to this going into this bullish phase. It never gets there.
No.
So why should this time be any different? I just throw that out there. I just wonder, Maybe this time it will, but on the other hand, given the way the winter has been, are we grasping at straws?
Well, our acquaintance or meteorological colleague, Dave Tolerus, sent me an instant message yesterday proclaiming that the European was finally showing signs of getting back on track, or something to that effect. And I just looked at it and I smiled and I said, well, we'll see. And
yeah.
he moved on.
Matt Streckler says if February 13th, 17th time frame, which is what we're looking at, doesn't produce well, let's not even go for the big snowstorm. Let's just go for an accumulating snow and leave it at that, all right? If that doesn't produce an accumulating snow for the New York City metro region, I think that may be it. I know 4 nor'easters in March last year, but doesn't seem like it again. I think that's a really good point. Last year, we were sitting here at this in the middle part of February, and the setup was totally different. That led into that whole blocking pattern.
We could see it happening during the latter part of February. We were saying that if it continued to progress the way it was progressing, that something significant was going to happen in March, and it did. And a lot of you folks who were watching us last year had already thrown in the towel on winter.
I just don't necessarily believe that because it happened last year.
No.
If anything, because it happened last year, probably means it won't happen this time around. Or if it did, it would happen in a totally different way.
It seems like whatever happened last year, this year we're seeing the flip side. So if we had a very active and robust month of March with 4 nor'easters, who's to say that when we get to March this year, we might have a very quiet
could very well. I wonder if this year, Corey Bodziak, the Sun Angelus are out. They are out. I know you got in late. We were talking about them earlier. I just wonder this year. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. We haven't had, the last several years we've had these extensions of winter going deep into the month of March and early April.
Right.
Maybe this year we'll have that window of opportunity. Maybe another window of opportunity shows up later in the month or when we get into the very beginning of March. But perhaps this year we'll have spring arriving and developing in a more average fashion, which still means volatility, but maybe the volatility will be skewed with an upslope in terms of temperatures, rather than kind of being sideways or even sideways to down, and then going up as you get deeper into April. I don't know. I'm just it was bound to have subpar, very much a subpar winter for the Boston and New York City to Philadelphia area.
Right.
A few pockets in there have done well. North of west of there, you go upstate, you go up into central and northern New England. It's a whole different conversation when it comes to snowfall. A subpar year for that I-95 stretch was due.
Well, where I live up in Putnam County. At this time of the year, I usually have logged about, at this particular point in time, anywhere from 20 to 40 inches of snow. And so far, Joe, if it weren't for that November snow, which so far has been the biggest that I have seen, I've had all of them maybe 10 inches of snow, and more. In the last couple of weeks, it's been more icy than snowy.
You probably have to go up from northern Dutchess northward,
right,
where the snowfall has been more even with average.
Yeah.
And that's not a short distance to go.
And how much is New York now? New York has had.
1.1 for January, 6.3 for November,
right.
7.4 for the season.
Right.
And usually about this time, New York City should have
December,
should have had, I don't know, between 15 and 20 by this time of the winter. Maybe closer to the 15 than the 20. Let's say 17.
But I mean, you pointed out the normal is close to the 30 as opposed
right,
to
25 on the 30-year average, closer to the 30 on the long-term average. So somewhere between 15 and 20. So you've had half of that, and almost all of that came back in November anyway.
Right. So who's to say that the second half of this winter, we're either going to see a lot of snow to maybe make up for what we've lost, or we'll look back at this winter season and say the big storm didn't even happen during the winter. It happened in late fall, in the middle part of November.
Robert Wood says, I remember a couple of years ago it got warm like this, and then we got blasted with a blizzard. But I know we will get a late season snowstorm. Well, perhaps. I would just simply say that if this were a winter where we were getting snow on a regular basis, I would probably feel there would be certainly more confidence in that possibility.
This winter, I just realized, here's the analogy. This particular winter season is like last night's Super Bowl game, where you're sitting in front of the TV set and you keep saying to yourself, one quarter after another quarter after another, he said, there's going to be an explosion, there's going to be they're going to start scoring, it's going to start, and then the game is over, and you said, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Well, what happened? And this may be a winter very similar to last night's football game.
Lenny Fazio pointing out something, Joe, that I know you and I both love. Daylight saving time starts in less than 5 weeks.
Good Lord.
Ugh.
I hate daylight saving time.
I don't like it either. Oh boy.
I wish they would just keep their hands off the clock and just allow it to be. And it'll be. Does it bother people if we didn't have daylight saving time? Does it bother you for the sun to come up in June at 4:30 in the morning? I guess it does. I guess people.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is it not enough to have it nice?
You would just get used to it anyway.
I mean, nice, bright, and sunny weather in early summer up until about 7:30. It's still light at 8 o'clock. For goodness' sake.
Bob Wilson's Toro snowblower sitting idly in the corner of the garage, the loneliest member of the family. Well, make sure you put some stabilizer in there.
Right, stable that you can get at any store, and also.
It's cheap, and your snowblower will start right away after sitting around just doing nothing for all this time.
I had during the last snowfall. Now my snowblower is only about a year old. I bought a new snowblower. The old one lasted for about 15, 16 winters. And stupid here did not drain the gas out of the snowblower at the end of last season. So when Stupid tried to start up the snowblower for the November snowstorm, it wasn't starting. But my wife, Mrs. Goodwrench, had in our closet or in the garage something called mechanic in a bottle. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of this. This will get rid of the gumming that has occurred after a few months. If you've did what I did with the gas, it gums up, it gums the works up or whatever, unless you drain it out. After the season. This stuff, Joe, is amazing. Mechanic in a bottle, poured it into the gas tank. Within 20 minutes, boom, started right up. So maybe if any of you out there have that problem, before you decide to bring it to your local lawnmower place to get your snowblower fixed, if you've been having these problems, go to your Home Depot or your local hardware store and look for this stuff. Mechanic in a bottle. It is absolutely amazing.
All right, we got to say goodnight. If you haven't done so already, folks, the link is up on the descriptor to this live stream tonight. Download the free weather app. It's for all mobile devices, Android or iPhone. The link is up there at the top, and I think, let me see if I can I'll put it up in the chat in case anybody is interested. It's free after all.
Free is nice.
Free is good. And folks have said some nice things about it, Joe. It makes easy access to the stuff I write, and you can watch live streams right from the app. So there's your link. It's on the top, and I just put it up in the chat. So download and enjoy, and you get notifications. By the way, every time I do something new. You don't have to worry about Facebook not notifying you that there's a new weather post or a new weather forecast or a new live stream. I will send you a notification, and everybody gets one. So go ahead and download it if you haven't already. It's absolutely free. You've got FiOS 1 News Hudson Valley at the top of the hour.
And you have FiOS 1 News New Jersey and FiOS 1 News Long Island.
That's right.
And hopefully not too much in the way of black ice problems on Long Island tonight.
I hope not. All right, tomorrow I'll be live streaming my usual YouTube show at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, so be sure to tune in. Patreon members probably get a live stream tomorrow morning. We'll take a look at what the overnight models have done, and then tomorrow night you and I will be back here at about 9:20, 9:25.
That's a promise.
All right, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you soon.